Very good afternoon and welcome to the Tropical Outlook. It is Saturday, the 21st of June. Happy summer solstice if you're in the northern hemisphere, and happy winter solstice if you're down in the southern hemisphere. A couple of days ago, we had the landfall of Major Hurricane Eric, a record breaker for the earliest major development within the East Pacific on record. We have seen 5 named storms so far, which is also record breaking. It takes to the 23rd of July to reach the E name on the list for the East Pacific. So it has been a very quick start to the East Pacific season. Meanwhile, we've had no development within the Atlantic Basin thus far, but we also have another opportunity for development over the East Pacific over the next 7 days. 0% chance over the next 48, it has to be said off NHC, but over the next 7 days, a medium chance at 50%, with an area of low pressure that is present just off the west coast of South America. This would be Flossie, I believe, if I'm right in saying, if this system develops. But meanwhile, over the next 7 days, NHC has no area worth being concerned about, which is obviously good news. No name system so far in the 2025 Atlantic season. We may go through the rest of June without any sort of development. At the meantime, we've got a fairly quiet main development region at the moment here, just a few speckled areas of convection near the equator, still quite far to the south at this time of the year. We've got a stronger than average Bermuda high continuing to dominate a large swathe of both the tropical and subtropical Atlantic. Lots of convection over the southern portions of Central America. That has been an ongoing story over the last few weeks here. Significant flash flooding in parts of this region of the world. We've also got the convection over super warm waters over the far East Pacific, hence why we've seen 5 named storms so far this season, and we could have a 6th in the next 7 days or so here. But the water temperatures are, well above average. We've also got a fairly low sheared environment. We've got strong shear over the Atlantic Basin at the moment, which is helping temper convection. But we've also got the large scale ascent within the upper levels of the atmosphere, which is not so conducive for any sort of development. Meanwhile, at the moment, we've got no active systems throughout the globe, according to the CIMSS website here. So that is obviously good news. So let's get to it then. In terms of overall environment, we've got a pretty strong shear moving out of the Gulf of Mexico through the Caribbean and right across the main development region of the Atlantic at the moment here. Play through this loop. This is a 200 to 850 millibar shear in knots and low-level centers. And the darker the reds, the stronger the shear. And you can see here very strong westerly winds blowing in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Obviously, we've got the low-level easterlies, but the strong westerly winds in combination with the low-level easterlies is creating quite an unfavorable environment for any sort of development. We're not really even seeing much in the way of robust waves coming off Africa. This is not the time of the year to really see that. If we look at the current sea surface temperatures at the moment here, the anomalies, we're actually talking about below average right the way across the main development region of the Atlantic. If we zoom in here, you can see a ribbon of warmer than average extending from off the southeast coast of the United States across to Europe. But actually down within the tropical belt here, we're actually running slightly below average according to the latest of CDAS data, which is rather interesting actually compared to recent years where we've had exceptional warmth through this region. It's complete opposite. And this configuration here with cooling the tropics, warmer in the subtropics, that is not particularly conducive for lower pressure. You tend to have somewhat higher pressure compared to average when water temperatures in this region are below average, which is something that we maybe need to keep paying attention to here, because this could have a significant impact further down the road here. In terms of the ascent versus descent within the upper atmosphere, this is a velocity potential anomaly. So essentially the Magellan Oscillation at the moment here, dark greens represent strong upward motion within the maritime continent, the East Indian Ocean. We've had a sharp increase in the monsoon over the Indian subcontinent. We've been seeing widespread flash flooding across parts of Mumbai, central and northern India. A bit drier across the south of the subcontinent, has to be said. But into the Southeast Asia and Indonesia region, we've been seeing some fairly significant rainfall events in this part of the world here. Obviously, a very moisture-rich environment at the best of times being in the tropics. But when you've got the Magellan Oscillation in that phase 3, 4, and 5, you're increasing the potential rainfall in this part of the world, including India, but also equally when you've got a large-scale upward motion in the east hemisphere, where you've got the strong subsidence over the western hemisphere, and that is very much the case over the Atlantic Basin. Now, you can see a little bit in the way of green showing up here just off the South American coast. That is helping the environment overall become conducive, and it has been pretty primed in recent times in terms of tropical cyclone development and strengthening. And you can see, if we look at this back to the 200 to 850 millibar shear chart here off the GFS, you can see that we've actually got a pocket of low shear, which means that you've got a very conducive atmospheric environment for development. So if you've got a Magellan Oscillation that is present, or at least an area of upward motion within this region of low wind shear, coupled with temperatures on the sea surface at the 88 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you've got almost a perfect environment here for development. And that is why the area of low pressure off the Mexican coast has a pretty high chance of developing over the next 7 days, because of the low shear, warmer than average water temperatures, and a very conducive overall environment. So like I said, I've showed you the sea surface temperature anomalies of CDAS. Let's have a quick look at the actual sea surface temperature anomalies globally. And you can see here that we've got, West Pacific remaining very quiet, by the way. We've got obviously very ample fuel over the West tropical and subtropical Pacific. We've got also very warm water temperatures here. Temperatures have slightly cooled or come down over the last week or so across both the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal here. We've had a stronger Somali jet exiting western portions of the Indian Ocean towards the Indian subcontinent. We've actually had two circulations, one over northwestern India and one over the northeast of India, helping pull that moist, rich air off the Indian Ocean into the landmass of India, and driving very powerful thunderstorms and heavy rainfall as a result. But this untapped reservoir of warm waters over the West Pacific remains quiet at this moment in time. In terms of the Atlantic Basin, the main development region, we've got the temperatures very, very much marginal through the MDR. Then as we move into the Caribbean, again, temperatures not massively warm, it has to be said, 28 Celsius quite widely across the central and eastern Caribbean. Then move into the northwestern Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico, you're talking closer to 30 degrees Celsius, and that is plenty warm for tropical cyclogenesis. Let's have a quick look at the North Atlantic specifically then. You can see that we are starting to warm things up over the Gulf of Mexico at the moment here, or Gulf of America. I have to get that right. You can see here water temperatures are around 29 Celsius across the north and northwestern side of the Caribbean, 27, 28, so reasonably marginal. These are water temperatures that are slightly below average for this time of the year. And then obviously as you progress eastwards, we're generally only talking between, as cool as 20 degrees Celsius northeast between the Cape Verde and West Africa here, 24 Celsius between Cape Verde and Africa also, and then all the way out to almost past the midway point of the main development region. We're only talking about water temperatures 25, 26 Celsius at this moment in time. That's quite important in terms of if you look at the CFSV2 for for further down the road. You can see here that the CFSV2 for the monthlies indicate that upward motion is focused over the Pacific, subsidence is focused over the Atlantic. This is for the month of July, by the way, and when you factor in water temperatures that are below average in the tropical Atlantic here, coupled with subsidence seen by the CFSV2, we may actually go through an unusually lengthy period with very little activity, which then starts to beg the question, could this be possibly a season that ends up being below average? It's probably a little bit premature to make that call, but nevertheless, this is an interesting scenario beginning to show up in the models with the rising over the Pacific, the subsidence over the Atlantic. That continues into the month of August. Strong upward motion over the West Pacific, still seeing that subsidence showing up over Central America, the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and the tropical Atlantic through the month of August. Then even into the month of September, we're not seeing much in the way of greens over the Atlantic basin. Now, this is not me saying that the season is over before it begins or anything like that. But nevertheless, I think that is quite an interesting look in terms of the models. In terms of rainfall anomalies, well, with an MJO present over the maritime continent, even affecting the subcontinent of India at the moment, we've got a wet upcoming week. So this is week 1 of the CFS V2. You've got the central and northern India wetter than average here into parts of Myanmar and Thailand. We've got a slightly drier portion of West Sumatra, and then as you move into central and eastern Indonesia, we've actually got a wetter than average signal showing up. In terms of the Atlantic here, we've got that ribbon of wetter than average across the tropical Atlantic. We've actually got slightly wetter than average across the Caribbean and the Gulf of America as well. Into the following week, we start to see drier signals showing up over the tropical Atlantic, extending into the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, slightly wetter across the southern and eastern United States. India continues with that trend of wetter north, drier south across the subcontinent. We've also got a wetter signal showing up over equatorial Africa, which is quite interesting to see dry up into Europe. So that is that. Let's have a very quick look then at some of the models here. I want to also show you, this is the main development region sea surface temperature anomaly, and we're firmly below average at the moment here. It actually dropped to nearly 0.5 degree below average. Then it rose to just 0.1 of a degree below, and then it's been dropping again over the last week or so here. So something certainly worth keeping an eye on in terms of sea surface temperature anomaly is the continued subsidence over the Atlantic basin. That is something that cannot be ignored. And then let's have a quick look then at the models in terms of potential spin-ups in the next week or so here. Let's zoom out quickly and I'll show you what's going on. Not an awful lot, it has to be said. Still looking for some sort of spin-up with the area of convection over the Central America region. But at the moment here, nothing really to write home about, nothing really to speak about, to be honest. This is obviously off the GFS model here. Continue to see quite a strong Mid-Atlantic or Bermuda Azores high. That is continuing to drive easterly winds at the surface, strong westerly winds in the mid and upper levels, creating shear. But nothing trying to bundle, nothing really trying to spin up as such. We've got that system trying to develop. That would be the next system, which would be the 6th named storm of the East Pacific season, way ahead of schedule. You can still see that strong, robust subtropical high. We do have some sort of little lows trying to develop here, but nothing really cluster, nothing really bundling in terms of energy. We do have an increase in moisture, perhaps across the West Caribbean through Central America over the period as we move into the month of July here. But generally speaking, I think we're pretty safe to say, I think, that we're going to go through the rest of June without any sort of development within the Atlantic Basin here. And whether we see another system even after, I believe it's Flossie. I hope I'm right in saying it's Flossie. But whether we see anything trying to develop even after that remains to be seen. But yeah, quite interesting things going on at the moment here. The Indian monsoon alive and kicking, and that is obviously good news for this part of the world here. Good news for the fact that we've not got anything organising in the Atlantic Basin. But yeah, continue to stay tuned. Thanks for watching the Tropical Outlook this Saturday the 21st. Be sure to check out the live stream at 4 p.m. as usual tomorrow. I'll leave a link in the description below. I hope to see you then. We'll be talking about the US-European heatwave, floods across China, and other interesting aspects from a global perspective. I hope you can join in for that tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.